Hello, folks. Welcome back to this live stream. Thank you for joining in today. Today, we're talking chords. This is kind of building on what we've been doing on the last couple live streams, really the fundamentals and foundation of jazz guitar. Grip chords, 3-note voicings. Today, we're going to talk about extended and altered chords. So, type in the chat who you are and where you're at. I appreciate you watching and being here on this live stream in real time. All right, so let's go ahead and get started, and I'll just see who else is here. Of course, Keith, good to see you. All right, so I'll just kind of start talking. Hey, Sparrow made it back. All right, good to see you. I'm going to make sure you can see my fretboard here. So at this point, we've got all of our grip shapes down. We know our roots on the 6th and the 5th string. Hey, Chris, take off, eh? You hoser? Good to see my Canadian friends. Jim, welcome. Rome, hey, you made it. Good to see you. Wow, look at this. What a nice crew. See, I know all you guys. Tom, welcome. So, chords are, if you play jazz, or guitar, chords is what you're really playing so much of the time. Unless you're Santana or Clapton, then you get to just play leads most of the time. I actually, when I played trio, jazz trio, I'm often soloing quite a bit too. But when I play solo, I'm playing chords a lot. So you want to just really love and enjoy chords. And if you want to get better at soloing, knowing and understanding harmony and chords is essential. Yeah, Chris, strange brew. Okay, so by the way, who can name this chord? We should start a little quiz. What's this chord? Who can name this chord? That's a good way to start. What chord is this? A6, good job, except I'm on G, so close. But you knew it. That's a 6 word without the root. So if you really wanted to be technical, you would say it's G6/D. The D's in the lowest note, but G6 is just fine. It's also E minor 7. It's an inversion. So again, either answer would have been just fine. Grab your guitar for these live streams. These ones that I've been focusing a lot they're interactive, at least supposedly. Like I want you to grab your guitar and do this with me. However, this one is kind of theory intensive, so you can also take notes. I did pass out a worksheet that's in the description if you want to download it. It has a few of the really super common shapes. By no means is it let's see, what's the word? Extended library of chords. There's a lot of fat chord books you can purchase. Altered Dave chord. Nice. I like that. Chords are just so amazing. Just by putting your fingers down and thinking about what chord do I get if I just do this, or this. Oh, that was pretty. One thing that I love to do is to take a shape that I normally would play like this, and I just move it around like this D7 chord here. I'll scoot over a little bit here. Let me see if I can make sure you can see where my frets are. D7. What if we did this? I took the same shape. Guitar players love this, just taking a shape. That D7 then becomes an E minor triad with a G doubled, where I actually call that G6, just there's no 5th. So there's going to be a lot of cool and interesting names. And like, why would he call that? This sounds happy. Yeah, this is an E minor triad, but I got the G doubled. So now it sounds like a G6 chord without the 5th. And all I did was take a D7 shape and just move it down. What if we move it to this set of strings? that be? Look, it's just the same shape. Doing this to this. Who can tell me what's this chord? Raise your hand. Just kidding. Anybody type it in. I'm on the 5th fret here, and I'm playing a D7 formation. Well, I'm not on the D root note here, so it's no longer going to be a D, though. I'm going to call it an A something. Rome, good job, A9. But it's not just a 9. It's a sharp flat 9, I'm sorry. Here's the 9. Here's a flat 9. Here's the octave. I'm going to talk about this a little bit more in a minute. I'm just showing you an introduction to this concept of just how you could get all these different chords with shapes. That's a natural 9. Sharp 9. Not a lot of people do it like this. That's the purple haze chord. It's another great. What do I mean by purple haze chord? Can someone type it in the chat? What if someone said, "What's a purple haze chord?" What would that be? Absolutely, ear training along with theory for sure. I always do that. With students, I'll play a chord and I want them to kind of tell me what colors they hear. Do they hear 9, sharp 9, flat 9? Is it a sus? Sus not meaning suspicious. That chord's a little sus. That's not what I'm talking about. Chris, to answer your question. Oh, Graham got it. Welcome, Graham, by the way. E7 sharp 9. That's the purple haze chord, this one. But here it is on A. And see, this is cool because this shape, we already are familiar with this shape. Because most people say, oh, if I'm on D, it's a D dominant 9. But here, it's A7 sharp 9. Isn't that cool? Just by moving these shapes around. What about here? What would it be here if I did the same shape here? This, move it here, move it here. What chord is this? I was almost going to say this. This is my 5th fret. Very Django chord. Well, I would call this, it's a little ambiguous, but I would call this a G6-9. Tom, you beat me. D9. A7 sharp 9. Is that cool? A7 sharp 9. D natural 9. G6-9. Anyways, I'm just having fun with shapes. So that's what I want to try to get you to think about, are playing around with shapes you are already familiar with, understanding formulas so you can decipher what is it that you're creating. And then also take familiar shapes again, like this D7, and then move it to A. Like, ooh, that's something different. That was a flat 9. But if you want A7, you have to do this. It's not as friendly, stretching wise. So that's one reason why we put notes up higher an octave. So that's what I'm going to demonstrate for you. So let's get started on today's lesson. It's a primer, an introduction lesson to some extended and altered chords. Primarily, these are going to be the dominant chord family, okay? But of course, I'll talk about some other ones. So let's start with your basic G7 grip shape. All right, we all love this chord. Many of you do it like this, but we don't want to do it as a bar chord. Okay, today we want to do it like this, just so 4 notes. Not that. This. 1, flat 7, 3, and 5. And at this point, again, I hope you already have my grip chord worksheet. Please review my last 2 live streams on grip chords and 3 note shape. 3 lives, if you want to watch the Bossa Nova one too, I've talked a lot about these chords. So what we're going to do, first of all, is we want to know that this is the shell. The shell of the 3 note shape. 1, flat, 7, and the 3. We don't want to mess with that. We're going to leave that intact. What we're going to mess with is the 5th and the 9. And don't worry, I'm going to kind of give you a little backstory in this in a second, but the theory of it, but I'm just gonna show you right away how to alter your fifth chord, your fifth on a dominant chord. So we have G7 like this. Start with your shell. Sorry, start with your grip, your 4-note grip. Not the shell, but the shell is what's safe. You remember what I said on the shell lesson? If you watch my live stream, I say the shell does not matter if you have a sharp 5 or flat 5 or sharp 9 or flat 9. We don't care because it's just a shell. But today we do care. Now we want those colors. So here's your fifth. Let's start by flatting the fifth. Okay. What is a shell? A shell is, I was going to be facetious, but a shell is, we're going to define it in music as a 3-note chord voicing. We have the root, you have the third, and the seventh. Okay, the essential parts of the chord. That would be the shell of the chord. No fifth and no 9, no other extensions and no alterations. It's very basic. But I go so far as to also say that instead of the 7, you can have a 6. Spara, I'm gonna recommend that you watch my shell lesson, my live stream from last week, because I go through the routine. That's pretty simple. But I'm not going to review it today. I'm going to stay focused. So G7, flat 5. You can do a finger style or with a pick. That's where I was saying last week on my bossa nova lesson. Joe Beam loves this. He would do this. It's a beautiful color. That's a flat 7, dominant 7, flat 5. Okay, you're welcome, Sparrow. Tom, thanks for that root third 7th. I even say root third 6 as well. And the third and seventh, of course, can be altered depending on the quality of the chord. Quality does not mean how good or bad it is. They're all good, but it means whether they're major, minor, dominant, or even diminished or half tone. So ready? G7. G7 flat 5. Okay. G7. G7 flat 5. Just get used to this. Now, this one, if you lower it one more, you're going to have a G4. No, just joking. I shouldn't joke like that. It's not April. It is April Fool's. G11. Why isn't it just an add 4? Because we have a flat 7. If we have the flat 7, then you got to name that note in 11. So that's G11. Kind of cool. You get this nice. I like that. G11. Okay. You call that a sharp 11 or a flat 5. That's where we have these different names too. G7. Ready for this next one? We're going to sharp the 5th. G7 sharp 5. Now, it can also be called commonly, this is where it gets confusing, G13, G7 with the flat 13. Or is it called G7 sharp 5? Typically, I would call it a flat 13 when I have a 9 involved, but you'll find this in books. There are kind of just, all the rules are kind of broken after. But you don't want to call this, you have to call it a dominant 7, okay, because you have a flat 7. So G7 sharp 5 or G7 flat 13. And then this one, of course, as I just said, G13. And that's just a regular extension there, because this 13 is the same as a 6. So you have G13, G7 sharp 5, G7, G7 flat 5, G11. And that's just an extension. You're probably wondering, well, what about the 9? I kind of just showed you early on the 9 down here low, but we're going to add it up on high. So here's the octave, 8, and I'm going up a whole step. And now I am barring like this. Yeah, oh yeah, and thanks, Rome. Rome, we need to schedule your diamond tier lesson soon too, next week maybe. Yeah, typically, and You can have an add 4 chord where you have both the third and the 4 added in at the same time, but typically it would be called an 11 if you have the 7. You need the flat 7 in there, okay? It could even be a major 7 add 11 like this. I'm just taking the 5th and going down a whole step. That's an add 11. Not an add 4 because I got that major 7. If I took out the major 7, then it'd just be called an add 4. But with the major 7, now it's called an 11. This is G major 7 add 11. There's no 5th, however. The 5th can be omitted, and that's one thing I want to stress. The first note that you want to get rid of is the 5th degree, okay? And when you have a 13th chord, you don't need the 9, you don't need the 11. I like to have the 9 often, but you don't need it. You don't need the 9. You don't need the 11. You just go straight to 13. But what you need to have is that 7 in there. Otherwise, it would just be called a 6. So this 13th degree is the same as the 6th degree. But it's called a 13 when you have the 7. So I'm going to show you something here. Rome, I'll get to your question in a second, but I'm going to play a G major 7 grip. If I take the 5th and go up a whole step to the 6th, that's called a G major 13. Okay. Of course, if I have a flat 7, it's called minor or dominant 13. I was going to say minor. I'm one step ahead of myself. Now, if you lower the 3rd, it's called minor 13 because we have a flat 7. So I'm calling this note the 6 a 13 because I have the 7. If I have no 7, it would be called a 6. What if you made a flat 7 a 6 chord? When then we have a G6. Is that what you mean, Rome? G7, G6. I hope that answers your question there. And then if you minor it, G minor 6. But it's really the 7th degree that we need to have in the chord structure to call it a dominant chord. And that's kind of our primary focus, our extended and altered dominant chords to get some cool colors. But I do suggest that you just kind of play around with triads too. I'm going to get off topic here just a little bit, but here's just a G triad. Here's a G sus4. Here's a G sus2. And back to G sus4. Here's G minor, G sus2, G major. G, now I'm going to, this is a little bit tricky here, but I'm going to take the 5 and flat it. So this is where the namings can get a little bit tricky. So that could be called a G triad flat 5th or add flat 5 if you want. You don't call that diminished. Diminished should be like this. But this one's always kind of tricky because it kind of has a sharp 11, like a Lydian vibe. You could also do it here. But now I lost my 3rd. So is it major or is it a sus? That's the question. So this is kind of, again, harmony can be very ambiguous and very specific. All these work great on the uke too. Spiral, you'll notice that once you know your theory, it's great. That on the ukulele, uke players, we don't have 5 notes, 5 string chords, so we just play 4 notes, and then we kind of play what's essential. We have the third, we have the seventh. And I'm going to talk about this. We get rid of the root. We often go rootless. So you'll see this shape often, even for guitar players. We know that as a dim 7, but on a chart it might say dominant G7 flat 9, but there's no G in it. So again, that's where it can be a little bit tricky and ambiguous, and that's exactly what I'm talking about, is how you can name certain things, a certain way, even if does not even have the root. But don't worry, today's lesson, you guys, is very basic, and don't forget to thumbs up this if you enjoy this lesson. I appreciate it. Let's get back to the basics, guys. I don't want to get too out there on you. G7, G7 flat 5, G7 sharp 5, G13, G7 flat 5. I'm just quizzing you. G11. I like that one. I like them all. G13. Now, since I'm already doing the 13, what I want you to do is to bar across. This is where I was getting at. This is a 9. So now I'm adding the 9 on. The 9 is an 8, a whole step above the 8. Now we have the G13 with the 9 on top. Now, if I don't want it, but on the book, you would just see it say G13. But I'm telling you, the 9 is on the top voice. A plain G9 would be this. On the uke, you would just omit the bass. Okay. that's a minor 7 flat 5 chord. In that case, it can also be D minor 6. This is where it gets a little bit fancy there. When you have no root, those are called rootless. Okay, so G9. Today we're gonna have the root. Don't worry. Now ready? G7 flat 9. I'm gonna do another way. Ready? Watch this. I put the G with my thumb, and I have a diminished 7 on top. Minor 7 flat 5, diminished 7. But now I put the root. Okay, so G9, G7 flat 9, G7. Now again, I'm showing you the 9 on top. These are the 6-string root extended and altered chords. G13, G9. Okay. Ready to try a few fancy ones? You can look at that worksheet that I put in the description too. It's free. I used to pass that out at my workshops just to introduce students, like I'm doing today, to some extended and altered dominant chords. How about G7 sharp 5, flat 9? Okay, I'll say that again. G7 sharp 5. So here's G7. Here's the sharp 5. And then the 9 is here, flat the 9. So you get this. Okay, and I'm going to ask some of you, what is this? What is this? Django loved this shape. I want to see what you say. What is this chord? This is my 3rd fret. Anybody know? It has 2 names. It could be called a minor 7 flat 5 or a minor 6. Not G6. Take off, eh? FDIC? Is this federally insured? Is that what you're saying? These chords are not insured. Okay, no one's got it yet, but you're getting close. So I'm going to play G in the bass. This is my 3rd fret. I got my F, my B, my D sharp or E flat, and the G sharp or A flat. G7 sharp 5 flat 9. See how it can get a little bit tricky, but yes, Graham got it. F minor 7 flat 5. And this is kind of what I'm getting at, is that this is why we can think these superimposed structures. You see the bass player or the rhythm player is playing this G7 shell, But on top, you could do F minor 7 flat 5, which is equivalent to what minor 6 chord? I know, see, that's why I said this is not easy stuff. This is already pushing us into some advanced theoretical topics here. You've got to have the basics down first before you can continue on with this lesson. Sorry. Leave the room. Go back to my other class, my live stream from 2 days ago. This is an intro lesson to altered and extended chords, but you already have to have your 7th chords and 6th chords down first. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Tom. A flat minor 6. That's equivalent to F minor 7 flat 5. But check it out, when we put G in the bass, G7 sharp 5 flat 9. So again, this is opening up new doors for you, I hope, for your soloing. You might see a G7 on the chart, but you're thinking F minor 7 flat 5. And same with your arpeggios, which is A flat minor 6. Sorry, I should grab the pick. And that's why one of the most common altered sounds to get is to play the minor 6 chord half step above and play the melodic minor scale. Because you get that beautiful color. You get the sharp 9. Well, I didn't show it to you yet, but you get the sharp 9, get the sharp 5, get the flat 9. It's awesome. Let's not talk too much about soloing. I want you to master these chords. Ready? That's a sharp 9, flat 9. Now, again, this gives me a good idea of where you're all at. So again, I want to be kind of thorough about this, but this is hopefully going to open up some new doors. But remember also, please make sure you have your 7th and 6th chords down, spelling and inversions, because that's what we're talking about now. And that's why this is kind of a difficult topic for a lot of instructors. They shy away from this stuff, but I'm here to walk you through it. It's nice to have a guide to answer some questions regarding this, and some of it can be ambiguous. There's more than one way to play chords to get some really cool, unique sounds, and there's ways to strip it down so you don't have 6 chords. we can imply a chord with just 4 notes. As Sparrow said, how about on the ukulele? Well, we have to get rid of some notes, then you have to really use your analytical skills. But not only that, you have to understand how it functions in the music. Okay, let's go on. You guys are doing awesome. Sharp 9, sharp 5. It's all on G. This is my 3rd fret G. So how do we do that? You got a bar across. Beautiful jazz chord. Well, I'm finger picking, Jim. Yukon. Otherwise, it's a trick when you're strumming. You got to just grace over that 5th string, because you do have to kind of bar, unless you have a little divot there in your finger. C minor. This is a great chord. Now I'm going to do it without the bass, and that's the other thing. You can wrap your thumb around. But I'm doing this. Sharp 9, sharp 5. Very nice. I know, I love this chord, especially on a minor, but it sounds great on a major resolution, like this. And then I'll go to sharp 11. Again, I'm really excited that you guys are so excited about chords and harmony, because this is so beautiful, and one of the beautiful aspects of playing guitar. Noodling around, sitting around, and just not playing your standard chords, but just to kind of explore. I usually say. If I went up one more, by the way, this would just be a plain 7. And then here's a 9. Oh, let's do this Johnny Smith chord. He uses this in his Moonlight in Vermont. So this is G7 with a flat 9 and the 13. So G13 flat 9 is the name of it. You don't need to say G7, then 13, then 9. That's too many numbers. Just say G13 flat 9. And yes, that's in that diminished scale, the 8-note diminished scale. This. And yes, you can slide it around every 3 frets. And it's as long as you keep it in the 3 frets, you're in that half whole diminished scale. This is a super cool chord. Is it there talking about? I don't know, but this one is cool. I call it Johnny Smith chord because it uses a Moonlight in Vermont. So it kind of is a diminished chord, diminished 7, but you could add a whole step above. You can actually add a whole step above any of those diminished notes, so you know you're just doing the same thing. It's all equally spaced. So we got the natural 13 and the flat 9. Let's try another one. This is fun. Ready? G13 sharp 9. What's that going to be? So we need a G13. Purple haze. Yeah, look at it. Look at the shape. Opposite of this is a major 7. We know that as major 7. But this is a G. I'll put in G in the bass here for you. G, flat 7, 3, 13, sharp 9. Kind of bluesy, right? And I'm just going like this. Like it's a blues lick. So it's a sharp 9. Yeah, have fun with that. So let's try another one. G7, flat 5, flat 9. Okay, I'll give you guys a second. G7, flat 5, flat 9. Oh, Jim, you've got your Mickey Baker books open, huh? I like the Mickey Baker books. But I'm the teacher, so let me name it, then we'll do it. That's a pretty gnarly chord if you have the 13 and the flat 9 and the flat 5 both. We just did the sharp 9 and the 13, natural 13. Okay. How many of you can do G7, flat 5, flat 9? Ready? G7, flat 5 with the flat 9. So I'm going to start with the 9, get the flat 5, get the 3, and this is a shell, by the way, guys. You see that's a shell, and then you get your alter notes like this. And yeah, I'm wrapping my thumb around. This is a cool shape, actually. Right? It's a dominant 7 chord inverted. Tritone. Does that make sense? You're going to discover a lot of cool stuff. Flat 5, flat 9, tritone 7. Exactly, Chris. But it's not D7. D7's this. D flat, tritone. Did you guys get that? Chris is onto something here. This is a D flat 7 inversion. D flat 7 inversion. But if you put the G in the bass, it's G7 flat 9 flat 5. Or flat 5 flat 9. Tritones have this. And that's the substitution. You can always substitute another dominant chord, a tritone away. Okay. Let's talk about Yukon's chord from the Mickey Baker book. D13. Okay, 13. Flat 5 with the flat 9. So If we go to D, first of all, I'm going to go to the 10th fret up here. Here's D13. If we get the flat 5, it'd be here. Now, I already lost my 13 by doing that, okay? The flat 9 is here. We already knew that because we could just do that dominant chord we just did. But to achieve the 13, that I'm kind of curious to see what Mickey Baker shows on there. The 13 of the D would be a B note. So you need to have a B. You need to have an E flat. This is where it gets a little bit, it's like a little game. You need that note too, which is, oh, this is my 10th fret. G flat. So E, we need an E flat, B natural. Got the D. There it is. I just had to think about that. And the flat 5 should be here. So I don't know. I'm not really sure how to achieve that. I'm curious on seeing how Mickey Baker does that one. Some chords are harder to finger than others. Sometimes you might have to use an open string to get certain ones. Yukon will talk about that in his book. Oh, rootless. Okay, see, I thought we were talking about roots. So yeah, today's talk is all about the roots. Yeah, if you omit the D, then that's okay. Okay, now we're going to go to the 5th string. These are just all rooted voicings, by the way, you guys. Ready? And we're going to take this shape. This is a shape I always demonstrate, C7. Actually, let's move it up to D so I can move my hand out a little bit. D's on my 5th fret. Ready? Now, what we're going to do is, before we started with the 5 on the 2nd string, but now we're going to use the 9. So here's D7. Take the D, go up a half step. That's flat 9. You probably already knew that. I usually do it like this. Now we're going to take the 9, do this. So that's a natural 9. That's where I was saying earlier. That's A7 sharp 9. And that's D natural 9. That's G6 9. And then now we're going to sharp the 9, purple haze. If we go up one more, we're back to the 3rd. So let's do that again. D7. This is I always call this the 9th chord routine. D7. D7 flat 9. D9. D7 sharp 9. If you go up one more, you're back to the 3rd degree. If you go up one more, you're to the 11. But then I'd kick into this shape over here on the 10th fret. I showed you that earlier. So you have this D. But it's better to do it like this at this point too. And then do this. But that's a sus chord because now we lost our 3rd. So that's why you'd have to go into this shape. If you want to have the 3rd and the 4 at the same time. And the flat 7 is now called the 11. So again, this is how I like to connect them, because I'll do this. The only note I skipped was the major 7. And you know what? That's kind of the no-no, the note you're not supposed to play, the major 7 with a dominant 7 chord. But I think it sounds pretty cool. So check it out. D7 with the major 7. Yeah. Gnarly. A little twisted, I have to admit. You know, on a dominant chord, you're not supposed to have a major 7. Supposedly. Pretty cool, though. If you're a fan of Bill Frisell, he likes that chord. He breaks the rules. You can make these little games. Why not? Write a tune. Almost sounds like this tune. So let's keep going, you guys. D7 flat 9. So again, we're taking the 8. We're going up a half step. We're not calling it a sharp 8. That's a flat 9 because we have the flat 7 here. This is the shell. That's our shell. 1, 3, flat 7. So that's what I'm saying. We've got to start with our shell shape first. Now you understand the importance of the shell, because then you can get rid of the fifth and get some of these color tones. Flat 9, natural 9, sharp 9. If I went up one more, that'd be the third again. Doubled, but I'll just do the shape. Yes. Okay. Easy. Now let's add the fifth on top. So the fifth on is going to be like this. We usually do it like this. Power chord, but this is a fifth on top. Sounds a little bit thinner. But that's a power chord. Different way of playing a power chord. But now let's add it back in with our shapes here. That's why I was saying this is D7. This is D7. Not my favorite thing to do like this. That's why I just get rid of the root. Fifth on top. But this is nice. D9. D9. The fifth is on top. Okay. So let's try something. Let's flat the 9 and keep that fifth where it is. Dark, cool. I'll say that again. D9. Let's flat the 9 and keep the fifth where it is. Now get rid of the root. Ta-da! Diminished 7. Okay. Again, that's what Pat Martino, the great jazz guitar player Pat Martino, says. The diminished 7 is an automatic thing. That's what he means. Is you can slide it around on the guitar. It's automatic. It's easy to do. And you get these cool flavors. And again, but when you put the D on there, that's a D7 with the flat 9. Complete D7 flat 9. All 5 notes. You can't do it on the ukulele. You're only going to do the dim 7. So D7 flat 9. Now, let's go on back to D9. I'll show you one more extended chord. No alter, just extended. D9. Take the 5. Go up a whole step. We know that as a 6, but because we have the flat 7, it's not called a 6 anymore. It's called a 13. All those beautiful bosses that Joe Beam would play. Has a little movement. 13, flat 13 to the 5, da da da. Let me get up back to the 9th chord here. Okay, 13, 9. Ready? D7, flat 9, sharp 5. Okay, please do that. I'll say it again. D7, flat 9, sharp 5. Here's the regular 5. I'm sharping the 5th. Yukon has a question. Flat the 5th to the 11. Flat the 5th. Oh, yeah, we didn't do the 11, did we? So let's do that. Here's a D9. Here's our 5th to the 11. Now you got to do this. This is not a very friendly chord to play, so I would just omit the root. Otherwise, you got to wrap your thumb around or tune your guitar down a whole step really fast. So again, you can take the 5th and go down a whole step, and it's not going to be called a 4 because we have the 7. That's when it will be named the 11. I know this is all interesting, and some chords lay well, some chords don't. That's where it's easier just to go over here and do that same shape over here. I thinned out the texture too, though. You can see that now I have C, F sharp, and then G, and the D in the bass. So we could do C, F sharp, and G, and then D in the bass. This is where you don't want to hurt yourself. But why do it like that when you can just do it over here? So again, don't hurt yourselves with some of these shapes. And that's what makes it unique to where you're at on the guitar. Okay. Don't try to be a, what do they say? I don't know. Just don't hurt yourself. Don't do any stretches that hurt yourselves. You got to be careful. Take care of your hands. By the way, Yukon, I was with you in our lesson when I was showing this Jerry Hahn exercise. I'm going to stop for a second and do this quick Jerry Hahn. Y'all know who Jerry Hahn is? Jerry Hahn from Kansas City. Jerry, if you're watching, you're awesome. Thank you for showing me a lot of cool stuff. Jerry Hahn has some method books too, but there's this cool exercise that I learned from Jerry's books, and from Jerry, I took lessons from him in Portland. You start with this major 7, you go down one fret at a time each string. So as you start with, again, this diagonal shape, then you move 1 fret down, and the next string 1 fret down, and the next string 1 fret down. Okay, and then continue. Take it slow. Breathe, because it's not easy, and it's a bigger stretch than you think. You gotta be careful with your hands. It gets harder as the frets get wider. So that's a great exercise. Jim, I told you, take it easy. Take it easy on yourself. That's why some of these chords, just you got to learn to omit certain notes. So let's get back to this exercise back on the D7 here. D7 flat 9, D7 flat 9, flat 5. Remember, that's the tritone. Chris, it's that's a good question. It's the point of some of these exercises that a lot of people show, these stretchy, really stretchy ones, is just to get good hand positioning. I think that's the point. That's a beast. See, I have to refinger it certain ways. So again, but don't hurt yourself. That's what I'm always saying. I no longer do certain chords because if it doesn't feel well, because I don't want to hurt my hands, because I need them to gig and make a living. So I just, as many of you know, I think many of you are on my Patreon page because you know my philosophy. My philosophy is this: if it's easy to play and it sounds good, do it. I'm all about just finding cool sounds and making it easy and enjoying it. But as you make these certain connections, you'll be like, ooh, that was cool. So D7, flat 9, sharp 5. Do you guys get that one? D7, flat 9, flat 5. Please try this one, you guys. D7, flat 9, flat 5. D7 shell, D7 flat 9, D7 flat 5. It's really just an A flat 7 chord inverted. Okay. But with a D in bass. Beautiful sound. Tritone sub. So again, if you know that this little hack about the substitution, for any dominant chord, you can play another dominant chord, tritone away. That gets you the flat 9 and flat 5. But each day that she walks through the sea, she looks straight ahead, not at me. That's what Joe Beam writes in the book there. I don't have it. I think my cat's sleeping on it, but I'm not going to disturb it. But if you look in the book, If any of you have a fake book right now on the girl from Ipanema, it will say on this part, but each day that she walks through the sea, it will probably say D7, flat 9, flat 5. That's your tritone sub. C7, flat 9, flat 5. Again, that's tritone, the power of the tritone. So, how you guys doing? This is a little bit longer lesson than I expected. It kind of started off easy, but then we're kind of doing some good practicing. But I'm making my point, I hope. But we're just having fun. D7. Let's do a couple more. I gotta do a couple more. Flat 9 with a 13. I like this one. I really like this one. But again, I find myself leaving out the bass note. Here's D13. Here's flat 9 with a 13. I just do this sometimes. So again, D7, flat 9. Get the 13, the B over here. Okay. So let's take the end of nuage. I did D7, flat 9 with a 13 without the bass. You can pump it around like this. So you go da da dee da 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 da. I love this stuff. This is their add 9. And that is kind of a stretch, I'll have to admit, these add 9 chords. But I love those 80 songs. You know what I'm talking about. But those all have those add 9 chords. You guys know what add 9 chords are, right? You use the term add when there's no 7. So in that case, there's no 7. You skip the 7, and it's just a triad with the 9 added on. It can be called add 2, but typically it's called a 9. Okay, add 2, add 9, same thing. But just there's no 7 involved. That's an add 9. This is an add 9 too, by the way. Jimmy loved that one. But when you put the bass in, you get some really cool colors. And that's kind of really where I'm going with this too. So we can start to fancy up. And today's lesson, I wanted to give you a foundation of extended chords and alter dominants and just the namings. Just hopefully, if you watch this a few times, it will clarify a few things for you, like on the spelling of particular chords. I'm going to show you just one more exercise that I like to do often, and I think it's helped me out quite a bit. And I have it on a lesson. It's already on Patreon, but C7, C7 flat 9, C9. I'm taking the second string and I'm going up chromatically on every note except for that major 7, but I think I'll use it today. That's the one note you're not supposed to have a major 7 on it. Is interval is on the dominant chord. C7, C7 flat 9, C9. There's no fifth in this, by the way, you guys. C7 sharp 9, C7. Now I got my fifth back. C11, C7 flat 5, C7, C7 sharp 5. This is a good exercise. C13, C7, C7 with the major 7. Oh yeah, and C7. So that was a really good exercise. I went chromatically up on the second string from C to C. and I made sure I had a shape to go with it. There are 3 shapes if you caught it. This shell. This is not really a shell. This is the grip shape, and this shell. So I was able to achieve all of those notes, kind of chord melody style. I'll do a little bossa style for you. And I'm going to kind of bring out that second string just to kind of make it ring a little bit, like it's kind of melodic here. Let's see. Sharp 9. 3. And to get the 11, I change shapes. Sharp 11, we call it a flat 5 usually. 5. Sharp 5. Here are the colors. 13. Regular 7. Ready for this one? Major 7. Yeah. And dominant 7. Isn't that a great exercise? Chris, you're leaving, eh? Time for some brewskis? Yes, it is indeed time. It's that time to say, see you later. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to do this if you enjoy the live stream. See you on Patreon. Bam. See you guys.